I woke up to machines beeping and a nurse's voice somewhere above me saying they'd called my only listed family member, my son. I tried to open my eyes, but the light hurt too much, so I just listened. Is he gonna make it? That was Jack, my son. Not, is he in pain? Not, can I see him? Just, will he make it? Like he was asking about a delivery truck stuck in traffic. The doctor said something about swelling, about monitoring me overnight. Then Jack asked the question that froze me colder than the accident ever did. If it goes bad, did he list a beneficiary anywhere? I kept my eyes shut. I didn't want him to know I heard that, because 2 weeks before that crash, I'd sat in the lawyer's office and found out my Aunt Marilyn had left me $38 million, and my son didn't know a thing about it. He wasn't asking because he loved me. He was asking because he was already doing math. If you're watching this and you've ever had someone in your family look at you and see a number instead of a person, tell me where you're from in the comments. And if this story gets to you, hit that like button because it helps this reach somebody else who needs to hear it. My name is Theo Cody. I'm 71 years old. I spent 40 years working the docks and fixing things, furnaces, roofs, whatever people needed done, in a small house on the edge of Wilmington I've had since 1988. One boy, Jack, raised him alone after his mother passed when he was 9. I worked doubles so he could go to college. I never asked him anything back. My Aunt Marilyn was my mother's older sister. Never married, no kids of her own. Lived quiet, kept to herself. I used to visit her on Sundays because nobody else did. When she died of a stroke, her lawyer called me into his office, and I sat there like a fool while he read numbers I couldn't make sense of. Real estate, stocks, investment accounts. $38 million left to me. I drove straight from that office toward Jack's place. I wanted to tell him in person, wanted to see his face. Halfway there, a truck ran the light and hit my car so hard the door caved into my ribs. I don't remember much after that. Just sirens, and then that hospital ceiling, and Jack's voice asking a doctor if I was going to make it before he ever asked to see me. When they finally let him in the next day, he stood at the foot of the bed with his arms crossed like he had somewhere better to be. "Dad, you scared everybody," he said, but his eyes weren't scared. His eyes were doing arithmetic. "I'm all right, son," I told him, even though my ribs were cracked and my arm was in a brace. "Good," he said. "Good. Listen, I can't stay. Naomi's got Lacey's recital tonight. But hey, the accident, that wasn't your fault, right? No lawsuit stuff on your end, no life insurance mess to sort out? Not, how bad does it hurt? Not, do you need anything? Just, is there money involved and does it involve me?" He left after 11 minutes, I counted. I lay there in that hospital bed for 6 days. My son came by twice more, both times under 10 minutes, both times steering the conversation toward whether Aunt Marilyn left much. I told him I hadn't sorted it out yet. That was the first lie I ever told my son. It wouldn't be the last. On the day they discharged me, I sat in the back of a cab with my arm in a sling, staring out at the same gray river I'd grown up next to, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell Jack about the money, not $1 of it, not until I understood what kind of man my son had actually become, and whether his wife Naomi had turned him into this, or whether it had always been sitting in him, waiting. That night, back in my own kitchen, I set my house keys on the counter and just stood there a long minute. 27 years in that house, raised a boy in it who used to run to me crying over a skinned knee. That boy asked a doctor if I was going to die before he asked to see my face. I didn't know how far Jack and Naomi were willing to go, but 3 nights later, standing by my sink doing dishes,
I heard my son's voice come through a phone he didn't know was on speaker, and what I heard made my hands go still in the water.
The water was still running when I heard Jack's voice come through the phone, sitting face up on the counter. He must have butt-dialed somebody or forgot the speaker was on. Either way, I froze with a wet plate in my hand and listened. Yeah, he's acting off. Kept asking me the same question twice yesterday. Then Naomi's voice, sharper, quicker. That accident shook something loose in him. This is the time to talk to him about getting his finances organized before it gets complicated. Let's just wait a little, Jack said. See how he does. Wait for what? He lives alone, Jack. Nobody's watching him. A few more of these episodes and we can go to a lawyer, get ourselves added to handle things for him. Older guys are easy targets if you move at the right time. Older guys are easy targets. I turned the water off, stood there with my hands dripping onto the floor, staring at nothing. That wasn't concern. That was a plan being built, brick by brick, and I was the foundation they were standing on. I didn't say anything, didn't call out, didn't confront him. I just set the plate down real slow and walked to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at a photo of Jack at 7 years old, gap-toothed, holding a fish he caught off the pier behind our old place. I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and called the lawyer who'd handled Aunt Marilyn's estate, a decent man named Harold, patient on the phone even that late. I told him enough. He said, "Theo, you shouldn't handle this by yourself. I know somebody." That's how Courtney T. came into it. Showed up 2 days later, mid-50s, quiet, steady voice, the kind of person who listens more than she talks. She sat across my kitchen table with a notepad and let me get the whole thing out. The hospital, Jack asking if I'd make it before asking to see me, the phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. "You think they're planning to move on your money," she said. Not a question. "I don't want to think it, but I heard what I heard." "Then we get proof they can't argue with." She looked me steady. "Are you ready for that?" I nodded, even though my chest hurt saying yes to spying on my own son. 3 days later, she called and said she needed to see me. When she came by that evening, she had photographs. Jack and Naomi sitting at a steakhouse downtown on Front Street, wine glasses raised, both of them grinning. Date stamped in the corner. The same night I was still in a hospital bed with cracked ribs. They weren't celebrating the client, Courtney said, and set a small recorder on my table. She hit play. Jack's voice, loose, proud. Didn't think the old man would come out of that so fast. Timing couldn't be better, honestly. Then Naomi, "This is your shot to go after guardianship. The weaker he looks right now, the easier it goes." My hands went cold around my coffee cup. There was a second clip, quieter, cafe noise in the back. Jack again. He's been forgetting stuff lately, repeating himself. Naomi's voice, flat and certain. "Good. Let a couple little things happen. Nobody questions it. He's old. One confused moment on record, and that's all we need." I set the cup down before I dropped it. "They're talking about staging it, making me look worse than I am." Courtney nodded slow. "I believe so, Theo." I didn't cry. I thought I would, but what came instead was something harder, quieter, like something in my chest had gone still and cold on purpose to protect the rest of me. I thought about every birthday card, every graduation, every time I told that boy I'd always take care of him. And now he was sitting in a steakhouse planning how weak he could make me look on paper. "I need a plan," I told her. "Not to hurt him, to protect myself from him." Courtney didn't flinch at that. "Then let's build one." We spent the next 2 days at Harold's office. $36 million of the inheritance went to a trust that couldn't be touched without a doctor confirming I was of sound mind, or without my own signature approving release. The rest, $2 million, went toward a small property down near Wrightsville Beach, bought quiet under a name that wasn't mine on paper. Then Courtney had cameras installed, living room, hallway, front door, one tucked in behind a plant on my kitchen windowsill. Not to spy for spying's sake, to document whatever happened when they came around next. The hardest part still hadn't started. I had to become a man they believed was slipping. I had to let them see weakness so they'd get comfortable enough to show me exactly who they were. Sunday came fast. Jack pulled into my driveway around 2, Naomi right behind him, carrying a bakery bag like she'd brought a peace offering. I opened the door with a smile I had to force into place. "Hey, Dad, you look better." I blinked at him like I was working something out. "Is it Sunday already? I thought today was Wednesday." I watched his face change, not worry, something closer to relief, like a puzzle piece clicking into place exactly where he wanted it. And behind him, just for a second before she caught herself, Naomi's mouth curled into the smallest smile I ever wanted to slap off somebody's face. That's when I knew for certain this wasn't gonna be a conversation that fixed anything. This was gonna be a fight, and I was already 3 steps ahead of them. They just didn't know it yet.
The acting started slow. A missed word here, calling Jack by his father's name once, forgetting where I put my keys when I knew exactly where they were. Small things, spaced out enough that nobody could point at one moment and call it fake. Naomi ate it up. She started showing up with little gifts, a notebook to help me remember things, a pamphlet on memory health she left on my counter like she just happened to have it in her purse. She'd touch my arm when she talked to me now, voice gone soft and syrupy in a way that made my skin crawl. "You don't need to push yourself, Theo," she said one afternoon, sliding into the chair beside me. "Jack help out. That's what family's for." I nodded slow, like I was considering it. Inside, I was watching her eyes move across my kitchen, the filing cabinet, the drawer where I used to keep bank statements before Harold moved everything into the trust. Work, Jack worked a different angle. Every visit came with a story. "Dad, my buddy's grandmother got scammed out of everything. It happens so easy." "Dad, maybe somebody responsible should be looking after your finances, just so nothing slips through the cracks." Every single time, I wrote it down after they left. Date, time, exact words. The notebook lived in my nightstand drawer, and it was getting thick. One Saturday, I was watching Lacey, Jack and Naomi's girl, 11 years old, quiet kid. Always seemed like she was listening even when nobody thought she was. She sat at my kitchen table swinging her legs, picking at a plate of crackers. "Grandpa," she said, not even looking up, "Mom and Dad said you're kind of losing it since the accident." My spoon stopped halfway to the bowl. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She shrugged, the way kids do when they don't know they're handing you a grenade. "They said we gotta help you remember stuff. Mom said if you forget where you keep things, we should help you find it, like your money and stuff." Help me find it. Not help me heal, not help me feel safe. Find it. I smiled at her, kept my voice even. "Thank you for telling me that, Lacey. That's real kind of you." But when I turned to grab a napkin, my hand was shaking so bad I nearly knocked over the milk. That evening, when Jack came to pick her up, I did the act one more time. Stood by the door holding a water glass, squinting at the clock like I couldn't read it right. "Is it that time already?" I asked. Naomi jumped in fast. "It's 8, Theo." "Huh, I thought it was closer to 5. I looked around, playing confused, patting my pockets for keys I already knew were on the hook by the door. I watched Jack's face dim. Not sadness, something closer to satisfaction dressed up as pity, and Naomi's eyes flicked quick and sharp toward the wooden cabinet against my wall. The second I stepped into the kitchen to make tea, she moved. I watched it happen from the doorway, my back half turned, hair hanging in my face. She opened that cabinet fast, flipped through folders, put them back almost exactly where she found them. Almost. The camera in the corner caught every second of it. When they finally pulled out of the driveway with Lacey waving from the back window, I sat down hard on my front step and just breathed for a minute. Not weak, just tired down to the bone. I called Courtney that night. She came over within the hour, watched the footage twice through without saying a word, jaw tight. "Theo," she said finally, "this is enough to move to the next stage." The next stage meant letting Jack push for full power of attorney and letting him think he'd won it. It didn't take long. 2 days later, Jack called, voice gentler than I'd heard him in months. "Dad, I think you should let me handle things. Bills, banking, all of it, so you don't have to stress." I let some silence sit there the way I knew would work on him. "Maybe that's smart," I said, soft, uncertain. "Lunch tomorrow," Naomi cut in, already on the line. "We'll come get you." I wore an old cardigan that day, the kind that made me look smaller than I am. We sat at a diner off Market Street, Jack ordering steak like we were celebrating something, and about halfway through the meal, he pulled a folder out of his bag and slid it across the table. "Just sign here, Dad. I'll take care of everything." What Jack didn't know was that Harold had already swapped that folder's real documents for blank ones with no legal weight at all. My signature on that page meant nothing. I picked up the pen, let my hand shake just enough to look uncertain, and signed my name slow across the bottom line. Naomi exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "You don't have to worry about anything anymore, Theo," she said, and her voice had a warmth in it that I hadn't heard from her since the wedding. I smiled at her, grateful on the outside, steel underneath. On the drive home, Jack said the line I'd already known was coming. "First thing tomorrow, I'll head to the bank, get everything squared away." I just nodded and looked out the window at the river going by, calm as anything. Because by morning, when Jack walked into that bank expecting to find millions, all he was going to find was $600. And I was about to find out exactly how far my son would go when he realized the money he'd already spent in his head wasn't there.
My phone rang at 8:12 the next morning. I let it go 3 rings before I picked up, kept my voice slow and groggy like I'd just woken up. "Dad?" Jack's voice was already cracking. "Dad, something's wrong. I'm at the bank. It says you've got $600 in here." "600?" I repeated, like I was confused by the number 2. "That's impossible. What about Aunt Marilyn's money, your savings, your pension account, all of it? Where is it?" "Son, I've never had much, you know that. I live off my pension and Social Security." "Stop it!" His voice jumped up sharp. "Where's the real money, Dad?" In the background, I heard Naomi, tight and fast. "Ask him about the trust. Ask him about the aunt's estate." "I don't know what you mean," I said, and let the silence stretch after it. He hung up without another word. Less than an hour later, Taya screeched into my driveway. The front door didn't even get a knock, it just slammed open. Naomi came in first, face pale and furious, Jack right behind her, clutching crumpled bank paperwork like it had personally betrayed him. "Explain this, Theo. $600. What happened to everything?" I looked at them both with the calmest, most confused face I could hold. "What are you talking about?" "Don't," Jack said, stepping closer. "Don't do that. Aunt Marilyn was loaded. Real estate, investments. You told me she left something." "She left an old house, run down, needed a new roof worse than mine does." "No," Jack's face twisted. "No way. That's not. She had money, Dad. Real money." I just shrugged my head, slow, tired. I don't have anything big to hide, son." Naomi grabbed his arm, her whole body shaking. "He worked himself sick planning to take care of you," she snapped at me. "We had a plan." "A plan," I said quietly. "For me?" Her eyes flicked away for half a second. That was all I needed to see. Jack slammed his hand down on my kitchen table hard enough to rattle the plates. "No one gets old with an inheritance and ends up with $600 in a broken-down house. No one." I just shrugged, playing the confused old man to the last inch. "If I had money, Jack, don't you think I'd have used it to help you already? You think I'd sit here and watch you struggle?" That landed somewhere in him. I saw it hit. Some old part of him that still remembered a father who worked doubles so he could go to college. But he didn't want that father anymore. He wanted what he thought that father was hiding. Naomi turned on me, voice climbing. "Are you sure there's no other account, overseas, a second bank, anything?" "No," I said, steady, looking her dead in the eye. "What you see is all there is." She stumbled back like the floor had dropped out from under her. They left that day with nothing, but I knew it wasn't over. People who've already spent money in their heads don't walk away quiet. Sure enough, less than 24 hours later, Jack called again, voice gone pleading. "Dad, maybe I moved too fast with the power of attorney thing. Can you call and cancel it?" I almost laughed. If I really had nothing, that paper was worthless to him now. Worse than worthless, since it made him look exactly like what he was. "I'll just leave it as it is," I told him. "Less trouble that way." He hung up without saying goodbye. After that, the visits got worse. 3, 4 times a week. No more fake smiles, just tight jaws and sharp questions. "Where's the money, Dad? Think harder. What bank? What account?" One evening, close to 9 at night, they showed up soaked from the rain, banging on my door. "Where is it, Theo?" Naomi said, voice cracking somewhere between fury and tears. "Tell us the truth." "I've told you everything." "We're about to lose the house," Jack said, breathing hard. "The contracts, the truck, everything. Do you understand that? You're doing this on purpose." That sentence cut deep, deeper than I expected it to, but it didn't break me. It just settled into me like a stone. "Mason, Jack," I caught myself. "I don't have money, not a cent." Naomi let out a short, bitter laugh through tears. "You think anyone believes that?" I closed the door on him that night and stood in my dark living room listening to the rain. Near midnight, my hallway camera caught them still out there by my back door, soaked, arguing in whispers. Naomi's voice, sharp through the static. He's hiding it. Tomorrow I'm asking him again, and this time he's gonna tell us. No more games. I sat there in the dark with that recording playing back, and for the first time since the accident, I felt something close to calm, because I knew what was coming. I just needed one thing from him, one sentence they couldn't take back. The next morning, I called a detective Harold had recommended. Detective Matthew Reyes worked elder abuse cases out of the county over a decade. Calm voice, steady, like a man who'd heard every version of this story and still hadn't gone numb to it. "I've got plenty of evidence," I told him. "What I need is one clear threat, and I think it's coming." "We'll be ready," he said. "But Theo, you need to be careful today." I almost smiled. I've been careful my whole life. Time to finish this. That afternoon, a small microphone, no bigger than a fingertip, got clipped inside my shirt collar. I called Jack, let my voice sound worn down, smaller than usual. "Can you come by? I'm feeling a bit lost today." 10 minutes later, his SUV screeched into my driveway, and I knew whatever happened next wouldn't be gentle. I set the teapot on the table with my hand shaking, not all of it acting anymore. The microphone sat under my third button, picking up every breath in the room. Naomi came in first, didn't even say hello. "Say what you called us for, Theo. We don't have all day." Jack leaned over the table, face close to mine, and it wasn't a shred of softness left in him. Not the boy who used to run to me crying over a skinned knee. Just a grown man doing math on his own father. "Stop pretending," he said through his teeth. "Where's the money? Do you want us to lose everything?" I stepped back, let my hand tremble against my chest. "Pretending about what, son?" "The money," his voice climbed. "Tell us where it is. Stop acting stupid, old man." Old man? My own son called me that. Naomi slammed her palm flat on the table so hard the teacup jumped. "We know you have it. Don't make us do this another way." The room went dead quiet. I heard the clock on my kitchen wall tick once, twice. I raised a hand to my chest, stepped back further, and this time I wasn't acting at all. "Are you," I said, voice cracking for real, "threatening your own father?" Jack froze. Naomi froze right behind him. I watched the color drain out of both of their faces at exactly the same second, like they'd finally heard the words out loud instead of just thinking them. "Dad, that's not, I didn't mean." "What we mean is you can't keep lying to us." Too late. Both of them knew it the second it left her mouth. I steadied myself on the table. "If you came here to threaten me, I think I need to call somebody." "Don't," Naomi said. "Don't you dare call anyone." I looked at her the way you look at a stranger, because that's exactly what she was. The next morning, I stood behind my curtain and watched a patrol car pull up outside their place, sirens quiet by the time they parked. Detective Reyes got out first. "Jack Cody, Naomi Cody, you're under arrest on suspicion of elder financial abuse, coercion, and threats against a victim." Naomi screamed that it was a mistake. Jack just stared across the yard at me standing on my porch, and for 1 second I saw something in his face I hadn't seen since he was a boy. Not anger, just pure disbelief that his own father had done this to him. "Dad," he called out, voice breaking. "Why? How could you do this to me?" "I didn't do anything to you, Jack," I said, keeping my voice even. "I protected myself. That's all this ever was." They cuffed them both and put them in the car. I stood there in the cool morning air and didn't feel triumph, just a quiet, heavy feeling of a door finally shutting for good. I moved out of that house within the week, signed the last of the paperwork with Harold, put everything through him from that point forward. Jack and Naomi didn't get to call me directly anymore. I filed a civil suit, too, $600,000 for the threats, the manufactured decline, the months of manipulation. Jack called once after the papers hit him. "You don't even have the money to sue us," he said, still not believing it. "But I do, son," I said quietly, and hung up. The court gave them 18 months probation each, 250 hours community service, and ordered the settlement paid in full. Jack's construction contracts fell apart within a month. Nobody wants to work with a man under investigation for elder abuse. Naomi lost her sales job not long after. Word travels fast in a town like Wilmington. I didn't feel joy hearing any of that, just a tired kind of sadness, old and settled deep. 2 weeks after the sentencing, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. "Grandpa?" a small voice, shaking. "It's Lacey." I sat down slow. "Hey, sweetheart, you all right?" Did Mom and Dad hurt you? I heard them fighting. I heard bad stuff." No child should ever have to ask that question. "No, honey," I told her gently. "I'm safe. I promise you that." "But why'd they do it if you don't even have money?" I closed my eyes. I'd planned to carry that lie the rest of my life if I had to, but not with her, not with this one. "Lacey, I do have money," I said quietly. "A lot more than anybody thinks." She went quiet a long moment. I told her the truth, slow and careful, about my aunt, about the accident, about why I hid it once I heard what her mom and dad were planning. When I finished, she was crying softly on the other end. "I didn't know Mom was like that," she whispered. "None of this is your fault," I told her, "not one bit of it." She asked, real quiet, "You're not mad at me, right?" "Never," I said, "not for 1 second." 2 days later, her aunt drove her down to see me. Lacey ran straight into my arms the second she got out the car, and I held on to that girl like she was the last good thing left standing. I used part of the money to start something I called the Cody Foundation, help for older folks going through exactly what I went through, families turning on their own out of greed. No big ceremony when we opened it, just me, Harold, Detective Reyes, and a handful of neighbors who'd heard my story and wanted to help build something out of it. Some evenings now I sit on my porch by the water, and Lacey comes down most weekends, kicking her feet in the pool, laughing like nothing ever touched her. I got a letter from Jack a few months back, said he was sorry, said he let greed take him further than he ever thought he'd go. I read it once, folded it, and put it in a drawer. I forgave him, but forgiveness isn't the same as opening the door back up. I'm 71 years old, and I finally understand something I wish I'd learned decades earlier. Blood doesn't make family. What you choose to protect does.